My name is Kaylee, and a few years ago I made a video looking at why ancient Egyptians are often depicted wearing these cones on their heads, what the purpose of these cones were, or if it was just strictly a religious reason for these depictions. This video is sponsored by NordVPN, but as always, more on the sponsor later in the video. The cones that are often depicted on the relief scenes from ancient Egypt were not just figurative depictions, but they were actually used in real life as well. This is because we have found these cones on the heads of several mummies that were exhumed at Amarna in 2019. Amarna being the city that Pharaoh Akhenaten established in 1346 BCE, and he made that the capital, and after his death it was just completely abandoned. So these cones seem to not only have a religious symbolic meaning, but they might have had a purpose as well. So some researchers believe that the wax from these cones would cleanse the hair of the person wearing it as it melted, and some researchers believe that it would have acted as a repellent against flies, mosquitoes, and other insects. But that was a while ago that I made that video, and I had a lot of fun researching it. But now, 2.5 years later, I've actually found myself asking nearly the same question, but this time I wonder why so many men in ancient Egyptian murals are depicted being bald. Why were they bald? And were all the men in ancient Egypt truly clean-shaven, or are these depictions not based on reality? So let's find this out together, shall we? Hey, ever find yourself drowning in a sea of passwords or worried about the safety of your sensitive files in the cloud? Well, today I've got something that will not only simplify your digital life, but also fortify your online security fortress. Let me introduce you to my loyal ally, NordVPN. NordVPN is not just any VPN service, it's your ultimate shield against online threats. With NordVPN, you can browse anonymously and encrypt your online traffic with just one click. Say goodbye to geo-restrictions and hello to a borderless internet experience. And with NordVPN's dedicated apps for all major platforms, you can protect up to 6 devices with just one account. It's like having a digital bodyguard for your entire online life. But NordVPN isn't just about browsing anonymously. It's about keeping your digital life safe from all angles. That's why NordVPN offers additional tools like NordPass and NordLocker, which can be purchased together with NordVPN. Let's talk about NordPass, your trusted password manager. Tired of trying to remember a million different passwords for your various accounts? With NordPass, you can securely store all your passwords in one place, accessible across all your devices. And with NordLocker, your personal vault in the cloud, you can rest easy knowing that your most important files are protected from prying eyes. Ready to take control of your online security and simplify your digital life? Click the link below to sign up for NordVPN today, and be sure to get NordPass and NordLocker together with it, because you will definitely need them. Get your NordVPN 2-year plan plus 4 months for free here with the link in my description box. It's risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. Hair in ancient Egypt was perceived quite differently compared to modern times. We see hair as something that's beautiful. If you have good-looking hair, that means that you're well taken care of and that you take good care of yourself and that you're healthy and all that stuff. But that was definitely not the case in ancient times. That has to do with the fact that hair in ancient times was often associated with lice and other dirt. However, a shaved head was only reserved for the upper class of Egyptian society. The upper class being the priests, the nobles, and the royals. There are, however, some scenes that have been preserved over time that show half bald men. These scenes depict people from low backgrounds, the working class. They are often fishing or working on the fields in these scenes, and sometimes they are depicted with some crazy hairstyles to show the contrast between the elite and the poor. But according to Toon Sikora, curator of the Egypt and Nubia collection at the National Museum of Antiquities in Leiden, the Netherlands, the degree of these crazy hairstyles in these scenes is greatly exaggerated. These depictions of the working class also show the people as malnourished, barely wearing any clothes, or in some cases, showing them completely naked. It's not like the working class would actually be fishing naked or working in the fields naked, but this emphasizes the differences between them and the elite, because the elite were often depicted with beautiful garments, wigs, and jewelry, and like massive stones, and they were depicted beautifully. This is all to emphasize the contrast, their hairstyles and lack of clothes, as the elite will be depicted with long hair, usually wigs, and wearing fine garments. So when we look at most of the depictions from ancient Egypt that have been preserved in modern times, we see many men who are bald. This has everything to do with the fact that most preserved scenes often take place in a temple or in tombs. So most men depicted on these scenes were priests. So knowing that the Egyptians viewed hair as dirty, and hair was often associated with lice, which was a real issue back then, it's not that strange that priests shaved their heads. Priests had to be clean and pure. So it seems like baldness in ancient Egypt had a religious function without a doubt, and not just to show that you're among the elites and you're not poor. So we know that hair in ancient Egypt was associated with impurity. But then I found myself asking, why so many royals are depicted with hair? And why so many royal mummies were found with hair? Did this not make the royals impure? Well, apparently it did not, because kings and their royal families had a divine aspect, which made them be above such earthly rules. Not all pharaohs kept their hair, but most definitely not all of them shaved their heads. So Ramses II's mummy was found to have hair. Granted, not a full head of hair, because he most likely started to lose his own hair naturally due to old age. I mean, honestly, that man lived to be over 90 years old, so that's really not that strange. So one of the most famous royal mummies with a full head of hair is Queen T. She had very long and thick curly dark brown hair. So you've now seen two mummies of two different royals living in two different dynasties. Queen T lived in the 18th dynasty and Ramses II in the 19th dynasty. But you might wonder why their hair looks so reddish or blonde even. This is because the hair color actually changes after you die. So the color of hair comes from the mixture of two melanin pigments: eumelanin, brown and black, and pheomelanin, yellow-red. Pheomelanin is actually a lot more stable, so over time the eumelanin oxidizes while the pheomelanin remains, and this is why most Egyptian mummies seem to have red tones in their hair. For a very long time, Egyptologists believed that the hair color change occurred due to the mummification process, because, they thought that the hair naturally bleached due to the mummification process, like the embalming and all that stuff. But it's actually been discovered that the mummification process itself had no effect on the hair color. Not every Egyptian mummy found with reddish hair had brown, blonde, or black hair during their lifetime, however. There actually were people in ancient Egypt who had red or blonde hair. It was unusual and quite uncommon, but it did occur, and red hair was seen as divine, as very godlike, as the god Seth in their mind had red hair. Ramses II had naturally red hair, but when looking at his mummy, it's easy to think he still had his reddish hair at the time he passed, but his hair was actually dyed red by the use of henna. His natural hair color at the time of death was, of course, white, which we would expect from someone over 90 years old. I mean, you don't get to keep your hair color at 90 years old. So, fun, not so much fun, fact I'd like to share. It's actually quite possible that Pharaoh Ramses II suffered from the condition ankylosing spondylitis, the very same condition that I'm suffering from. In his last years of his life, he probably walked with a hunched back as his spine had fused. But I went way off track here, sorry. Some pharaohs wore fake beards, as they shaved their natural beards. Again, impurity, lice, all that stuff. And then of course there was Pharaoh Hatshepsut, a female pharaoh, who is often depicted with a fake beard as well. She did not dress up like a man so that people wouldn't notice that she was a woman, but she simply dressed like a true pharaoh, including the fake beard. So ancient Egyptians weren't all bald. It had everything to do with their classes, whether they were part of the elite or the working class. And the royals were exempt of needing to shave their heads because they were more divine. As I mentioned before, royals and nobles, however, are most often depicted with large wigs or crowns. This had everything to do with the afterlife. These images were intended for the afterlife, so their complete appearance was based on the Egyptian ideal, including the hairstyles. So now we know why men in ancient Egypt are so often depicted bald on the relief scenes that have been preserved over time. But what do you think? Why do you think they were so often depicted bald? Do you agree with my research or do you have a different opinion? Let me know in the comments down below. But before you go, don't forget to click the link in the description to get started with NordVPN today. If you enjoyed watching, then don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe if you'd like to see more of these kind of videos, and click that bell icon if you want to be notified whenever I upload. If you haven't seen my previous videos yet, then click the card in the upper right corner or click one of the links in the description down below or click a video in the end card. I would also like to say a massive thank you to all my patrons and my channel members. Thank you so much for supporting me. And yeah, you're gonna see this video as my surgery has already occurred. No idea how I'm doing, but yeah. I would also like to remind you of my Turkey tour this October 14 until the 25th. We're going to see Göbekli Tepe, Karahan Tepe, the Sanliurfa Museum, Cappadocia, the underground city of Derinkuyu, Hattusa, Haran, Sokmatar. You do not want to miss this tour. It's a once-in-a-lifetime trip. I'm going to Turkey once in my entire life. This is it. Join me. So please check out communitygarden.org and check out the Turkey tour that I'm doing. The link to book your spot on the trip is in the description down below.